Be sure as you're studying that you take the time to go over your vocabulary terms in this section. These problems are like ones that were on your quiz. We can only use a term once, so I'm going to look at where DF is. DF is from a vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. So DF, by definition, is a median. AC makes a 90-degree angle. It could be called an altitude, but it also is splitting this segment in half, so it is a perpendicular bisector. And BE only makes that 90-degree angle. It doesn't bisect anything, so it is an altitude. The point of concurrency of perpendicular bisectors is called the circumcenter. Point of concurrency formed by medians is called the centroid. The point of concurrency of angle bisectors is called the incenter. And the point of concurrency of the altitudes is called the orthocenter. Again, vocabulary is important in this section. Number 8, they said use the figure below. YA is an angle bisector. So I know that these two pieces are the same. It says the measure of XAY is 8x minus 5. The measure of ZAX, the whole thing, is 6x plus 5. Since this is an angle bisector, this angle is also 8x minus 5. So I can take 8x minus 5 plus 8x minus 5 using the angle addition postulate and set it equal to 6x plus 5. Combine like terms, 16x minus 10 equals 6x plus 5. Subtracting 6x, I now have 10x minus 10 is equal to 5. Adding 10, 10x is equal to 15, so x is equal to 1.5. They did ask me to find the measure of ZAY, so I have to plug that back in. So I have 8 times 1.5 minus 5. 8 times 1.5 is going to be 12. Minus 5 would be 7. So the measure of angle ZAY would be 7 degrees. It says use the figure below. BD is a perpendicular bisector, so I know this is 90 degrees, and that AB and BC are the same. It says AB is 7x plus 4. It said AC, the whole thing is 50. There's a couple different ways that I can do this. Since it is a perpendicular bisector, it cuts this 50 in half. So each one of these pieces is 25. Or you could have taken this 7x plus 4 and written it over here and done 7x plus 4 plus 7x plus 4 equals 50. 7x plus 4, however, is equal to 25 because each segment length had to be 25 units long. Subtracting 4 from both sides, 7x is equal to 21, which means x is equal to 3. Number 10, before I do this problem, I certainly would start out by drawing a triangle. And I'm just going to label it P, Q, R. They said angle P is 54 degrees. Angle R is 29 degrees. In order to list the sides in order from least to greatest, I do need to find the missing angle. So I'm going to take the 54 and the 29 and add them together. And 54 plus 29 is 83. And I'm going to take that and subtract it from 180. So the remaining angle is going to be 97 degrees. They want them from longest to shortest, so the longest is going to be across from the largest angle, which would be segment RP. Please make sure your notation is proper. The next longest segment would be across from the 54, which would be segment RQ. And last but not least would be across from the 29, which would be segment PQ. Again, if I did PR, that would be okay. The order of these two don't matter, but it is important that they're both capital letters with the segment line across the top. Likewise, with the problem 11, the first thing I'm going to do, draw a triangle, and I'm going to label the triangle A, E, P. They said the measure of angle E is x minus 5. They said the measure of angle A is 4x plus 10. And that the measure of angle P is 6x plus 10. Well, in order to figure out which side is the greatest, I am going to have to add all three of these together. And set them equal to 180 degrees. Combining like terms, 6x and 4x is 10x, and one more x is 11x. 10 plus 10 is 20, minus 5 is 15. This is all equal to 180 degrees. If I subtract 15 from both sides, I have 11x is equal to 165. And if I divide by 11, I get x is equal to 15. And I'm plug that information back in here. When I plug it back in this angle would be 15 minus 5. So this angle is a total of 10. If I do it here, I'd have 4 times 15, which is 60, plus 10. So this angle is 70 degrees. 6 times 15, which is 90, plus 10. So this angle is 100. 170, 10 does add up to 180. Now they want the sides in order from longest to shortest. So across from the 100 degrees would be the longest, segment AE. Across from the 70 would be the next longest, which would be segment PE. Last but not least, across from the 10 would be segment AP. Angle 5 is an exterior angle. It's an exterior angle of this small triangle. It's also an exterior angle of this larger triangle. It would be greater than any of its remote interior angles. So it's greater than 3. It's greater than 7. It's greater than angle 1. But it would also be greater than this whole thing, so it's obviously greater than 6. When I go to look at angle 2, angle 2 is an exterior angle of the triangle that has angles 7, 3, and 4. So it is greater than 4, but it's also greater than 7. Angle 3 is an exterior angle of triangles that has 1, 2, and 6 in it. So it is greater than 1, but it's also greater than 6. Oh, it's asking for what it's less than. So I don't need those. What is it less than? Angle 5 is an exterior angle, so angle 3 is less than angle 5. And if I look at the next part, it says, what is it greater than? So it's an exterior angle of this one, and it would be greater than 1 or 6. Again, make sure that on the test that you're showing all your work. First thing I'm going to do is draw a triangle. I'm going to label it ABC. They said AB is 2x minus 6. They said BC is x plus 2. And they said AC is x. It said the perimeter is 36. That's the distance all the way around the outside. So I'm going to take my values, x plus 2x minus 6 plus x plus 2, and set it equal to my perimeter of 36. And I'm going to combine my like terms. I have x, 2x, and other x. That's a total of 4x. I have a negative 6 and a positive 2. That's a negative 4. Equals 36. Adding 4 to both sides, 4x is equal to 40, which means x is equal to 10 when I divide both sides by 4. They want the angles in order from largest to smallest, so I do have to plug that 10 back in. This side is 10. This side would be 2 times 10, which is 20, minus 6, so this side is 14. And this would be 10 plus 2, which is 12. Largest is going to be across from the 14, so the largest angle is going to be angle C. Again, make sure you're using the angle symbol in a capital letter. The next largest is going to be across from the 12, angle A. And last, again but not least, is going to be the smallest one, which is angle B. Find the shortest and longest segments in the figure, but in order for me to do that, I do have to fill in these missing pieces first. So in the triangle that's on the top, SQR, I have 65 and 70. I've used up 135 degrees out of 180. The remaining angle on the top then had to be 45. In the bottom triangle, I've used up 68 and 75. So I have used up a total of 145 degrees out of the 180, which means this bottom one had to be 35 degrees. I'm going to look at each individual triangle, and I'm going to go around then and label the sides small, medium, and large. In the top triangle, across from the 45 would be the smallest. The one that's across from the 65 would be in the middle. And the one across from the 70 would be the largest. When I go to the next triangle down, across from the 35 would be the smallest. Across from the 68 would be in the middle. And across from the 75 would be the largest. If the smallest number in the triangle that I did with red letters, if the smallest side is here, but this is the largest side in the other triangle, let's just say that this was 10. We'll make up a number. It tells me that there's no way that if I'm looking for the shortest ones, that the larger and the medium one could be right. These two would be out when I'm looking for the shortest side. It means the shortest side had to come from the triangle that I did in green. And obviously the medium would be smaller, but the small would be smaller yet. So ST is the shortest side. When I go to look for the longest, again, because the short and the long compared, the longest side in the bottom triangle would have been 10. But since this is a medium and this is larger, the medium one is bigger than 10, the larger one is bigger than the medium one, so this would be the largest, which would be SQ. Do these form a triangle? Be sure to show your work. 2 plus 3 is greater than 4. The two shortest is greater than the longest. So the answer to this is yes. take the two shortest and add them together. Is it greater than 7.8? 3.2 and 4.6 is 7.8, which is not greater than 7.8. In fact, it's equal to, so this is no. 5 plus 200, the two shortest, is greater than 200, so this would be yes. When you're finding the value of the third side of a triangle, remember we do this by simply adding and subtracting. So I know that the side has to be bigger than 63 minus 24, but it's got to be smaller than 63 plus 24. 63 minus 24 is 39, and 63 plus 24 is 87. So I know that it has to be between 39 and 87. Same thing all the way across. 14.1 minus 1.2 and 14.1 plus 1.2. 14.1 minus 1.2 is 12.9. And 14.1 plus 1.2 is 15.3. So I know x has to be bigger than 12.9, but it has to be less than 15.3. I know when I'm looking at the next one, I have 92 minus 15, or 92 plus 15. 92 minus 15 is 77. So x has got to be bigger than 77, but it has to be less than 107. The last two problems use the Hinge theorem or its converse. And if I take a look, I have one side in each triangle that's congruent, and I have the side that's reflexive. So across from the 20 has to be larger than what's across from the 18. So when I'm comparing 2x minus 16 to 36, I know that it's smaller than the 36. I'm going to add 16 to both sides. I now have 2x is less than 52, and I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And x is going to be less than 26. Because this is an angle, I know that an angle has to be bigger than 0 or less than 180. Because I've already done the less than part, I'm going to take the 2x minus 16 and compare it to what it has to be bigger than, which is 0. So 2x has to be greater than 16. Dividing by 2, x is greater than 8. Okay, so I have x is greater than 8, x is less than 26. Likewise, when I come over to number 18, I see I have one side marked as congruent. I have the reflexive side. Whatever's across from 18 is certainly going to be larger than what's across from 17. So 3x minus 15 has to be greater than 66. I'm going to add 15 to both sides. 3x is greater than 81. And I'm going to divide both sides by 3. X has got to be greater than 27. Since I did x is greater than something already, I've got to take my angle 3x minus 15 and make sure that it's less than 180. And I'm going to add 15 to both sides. I now have 3x is less than 195. And I'm going to divide both numbers by 3. So x is less than 65. So my range of values, x has got to be greater than 27, but it's got to be less than 65.